Thank you for joining us today. We are here to talk about customer setup and item setup. Um, I've been with the company extensiv for just over 5 years now as a solutions architect. Um, Prior to that, I worked in an actual warehouse as the IT guy and everything else that needed to be done. You know how that goes. But spent about 11 years in that role before he came over. Today, Charlie's going to kind of lead on our demo and kind of walk us through some of the different settings and stuff like that. We can expect to see kind of the what they do, what they don't do on these different pieces within the customer and the item setup. We will stop kind of briefly to answer questions. Charlie will queue us up when he's ready for that. We'll open up. Right now, everybody's set so they can't unmute themselves at the moment, but we'll allow you to unmute and ask some questions at that point. So, Charlie, ready?
Yeah, thanks, John.
Yep.
Hi, everyone. I'm Charlie. I'm one of the solutions architects here at Extensiv. And today we're going to be going over customer creation and item setup, as well as our new serial update for item serialization here. Give me just a second here. Pull up some notes. And we're set. All right. So the first thing we're going to go over is customer creation. And to do that, we're going to go to customers and manage customers here. Now, one thing to note on this screen, one thing you can do is activate or deactivate customers to make them inactive if you're no longer using them. One thing to call out is if you are to inactive a customer, their inventory will then be stuck in your inventory area. You will not be able to create any receipts or create any orders on the outbound as well. So just know it's typically should be done probably after you've already pushed all inventory out of the system. Another thing to call out here is when you create a customer, you have the option to clone a customer in its settings. So if I were to select a customer here and go to clone, this is going to pop up. It's going to ask me if I want to clone the existing customer settings, which we'll be going over here shortly, as well as billing settings. Now, just to be clear, these billing settings are specifically for Billing Wizard only. So not Billing Manager, just Billing Wizard. And so with that, you go ahead and hit create customer, and we're just going to go through customer I have created here and go over all the settings here. So the first thing you have is the customer's name, which is required, and then phone numbers, website addresses, stuff like that you can all plug in here and utilize as need be. Primary contact is something I'd highly recommend that you put in here. And what this allows you to do is maybe like you have a CSR team that's in charge of a certain amount of customers or certain clients, and maybe they're out for the day. This will allow someone else to come in here and be able to, see who the primary contact is if something were to come up, an email or phone number to contact them if need be. The next thing we have here is our customer specific notifications. And so if you were to turn this on, it would override it and it would then allow, so maybe let's say I'm a CSR and I'm in charge of this account. I wanted to say, hey, this is coming from Charlie. And when they reply to that email, it goes to my email. I can spell my last name. And here. And so what these event notifications are, they're all based off in the customer settings under event notifications, if you have that enabled. And this override setting is overriding if you go into admin and you go into settings. By default, your event notifications here at the bottom will be set up here. I have mine blank in here, but you should have yours set up if you don't already. And this will override so that way it goes maybe to a specific person rather than a general email. And then lastly, on this page, we have our warehouse access. So you can see, if you were to clone a customer, it would, if I were cloning it and I had these three selected, it would also do the same. One thing to call out is if you do not select a warehouse and you're on that customer and you're trying to create an order or create a receipt and it does not allow you, it is because you do not have a warehouse access. All right, our next topic is going to be in the receipts area here under our general settings. So the first thing we have is our location settings. Now we have the option of being disabled, allowed, or required. And let's talk about that. Locations disabled, maybe you're not using locations at all. Definitely not best practice, but sometimes it is utilized for whatever reason. You can have that disabled. Allow locations allows you to use locations or not use locations, so it could be a null. And then lastly, require locations means that no matter what, every item has to have a location. Personally, myself, I kind of like allow locations versus required. And the reason behind that being is if, let's say you create an ASN, an advanced shipment notice, letting us know that we're supposed to be receiving some goods, you would then have to put that in a location. Now, you can just create like an inbound location or a fake location, so that way the system can accept it into that location. But that would be the reason, something you'd have to do if you use require. The next option we hear are movable units, pallet IDs, skid IDs, whatever it is you may want to call it. Yeah, I'd say majority of our users here typically use them for pallets, but you can have it disabled. Maybe you're not using them at all for this client. Allow, which is probably the most commonly used, or required. The reason why someone would use allowed versus required is maybe you are receiving pallets or you're building pallets on the inbound, but then you break them down. Maybe you have shelf space where you just put loose cartons, or you have a pick line where you just put a carton at a time. You don't then want to make sure you have to have a movable unit label on everything in order for you to move it. So allow would be great. A good reason to use require would be maybe you're just this client that you have coming in is specifically pallets. It's pallet in, pallet out. Maybe you don't touch them or break them down really at all. And so this way you would then require you that whenever you receive product, there must be a movable unit label created for that, a movable unit created for that product. So that would be a good reason to require movable units. Next, we have our fuel surcharge percentage. This is for reporting purposes if you're going to be using fuel surcharges at all. And then we have our supplier options. You can either disable, which is probably most commonly used, allow, or required. Now, this is at the customer level. So if you have allowed, it'll be an option on every time you bring in any product. Where required is as well, it'll be on every product that's coming in. Typically, when I see this, it's usually allow suppliers because maybe there's a product or two, a SKU or two that your client wants you to select which supplier it is that's bringing it versus all of their SKUs. Or if you have a customer that's like, hey, maybe all of their SKUs need certain suppliers, you would then require that. And suppliers can also be created separately under the customers tab as well. All right, the next one. When confirming a receipt, default to auto allocate to complete orders. So basically what that means is, let's say you have back orders. Some orders come in before maybe you receive the goods. And so you have orders that are unallocated for whatever reason. Whenever you were to receive goods for those orders, so that same product that is on those orders, when you when you confirm that receipt, it would then allocate that new product you just received to those back orders or unallocated orders. Next, we have when adding receipt line items, default to split movable units. So we'll get into more details about this when we go over the item settings. But essentially, let's say, hey, I'm bringing in some SKUs and it's 100 SKUs per pallet or 100 quantity of 100 per pallet. And I have 200 of it coming in. If I type in 200, the system knows split it by 100. And so therefore would make 2 pallets of 100. Now, this isn't always a great thing because maybe you put runoffs on. So let's say you received, it's 100 per pallet and you received 210. What it would do then, it was then create a pallet of 100, a pallet of 100, and then a pallet of 10. So if that's the way that you'd want it set up, this is a great thing to have set up or turned on for you. If runoffs or maybe pallet amounts aren't always the same, this would not be a good tool to utilize. And then the last setting here in the general settings we have for receipts is enable suggested put away. Now, what this would do is if you're using SmartScan or using the main UI when you create a receipt or add product, it'll then tell you when you hit that drop down where it currently resides in the warehouse. Now, this may not be great for everyone because maybe these are pallets that are coming in and your pallet locations only hold 1 pallet per. The idea then is it's then going to take you to that location where it currently resides, and you can then put it maybe in an open location that's nearby, thus keeping like items near each other to then make your picking and packing faster in the future. All right. Now, this is specific to just SmartScan. So if you're utilizing a SmartScan or you have SmartScan, these options these are specifically just for that. Receive against ASN. So what an ASN is in our system is an advanced shipment notice. And that's letting the system know that, hey, I'm supposed to be receiving X amount of goods with maybe certain serial numbers, certain lot numbers, certain quantities versus what I actually received. So that way you can show a report to your client. Hey, we were supposed to receive 1,000 of these. I got 900 of them. Something like that. Or we were supposed to receive 100 of these with this serial number, but actually this serial number showed up. So that way they can compare the two. And an ASN is created in our system by you selecting mark as complete whenever you create a receipt. It automatically triggers to be in what we call an ASN. Use blind receipts. Now, just to be clear, this is specifically once for SmartScan. Once again, what a blind receipt means is that it's going to make your ASN blind, meaning you told the system, hey, we're supposed to receive 100 widgets. When I'm the inbound person on the scanner, I'm not going to see what I'm supposed to be receiving. It is just blank, and I then scan the product in and quantities in as it comes in. If you don't have that selected, it then shows the person what they're supposed to be seeing or how many they're supposed to have. It's really up to you and your business, depending on what you like to use. I personally am not a big fan of it, but it is an option for certain reasons and something that's there. Default quantity to 1. This goes with blind receipts. For whenever time you scan a SKU, it'll default the quantity to 1. Display weight fields for receipts. This will then allow the weight field to appear on the scanner. Typically, this is utilized for catch weights, so that way you can bill based off of that if need be on the inbound. Allow move of unconfirmed inventory. All right, so let's say we have an ASN in the system, or we're creating a receipt in the system. Maybe it just showed up as well, and we're unloading a truck, and maybe it's we're floor loaded and we're building pallets, or maybe it's already palletized. What this can allow us to do is if we have this turned on, this will allow us that the items that we said are coming in or that we've already scanned in at that point, we could then move them to locations in the warehouse. If you do not have this checked off and you are bringing in a receipt, you would need to close or confirm that receipt before you can move that inventory. So if you're doing a flow loaded container, you got 2 or 3 people pulling boxes off, you got someone building pallets, and then you have 2 or 3 forklifts putting those pallets away. This is something that you would want enabled so that way the flow continues and you don't need to build all of your pallets and print everything out all at once and confirm it before you can start moving it. This can keep that flow rolling and moving. And by default, this is not enabled. And then lastly here, we have our custom fields. So if you're utilizing custom fields for whatever reason, you can require them that displays just the required ones that you have turned on, or display all custom fields if need be. If you want display all custom fields on, you must have the required ones on as well. Now we'll take a break at the end of this customer thing for any questions that come up, but I'm going to keep going through this. Just want to call out there are going to be a few things I'm probably going to be skipping over, and that's either because we're going to be going over these in future calls, and I will let you know. All right, the first setting in orders. Close order when a file import updates tracking information. So we have an import template, and this was mostly utilized for people who do not use small parcel, and I think it was created before a small parcel area that we have now. This allows you to import tracking information to, maybe you export it from FedEx and you want to import it into our system. This will then, when you import all that tracking information to all the orders, it'll auto close that order as needed. Order queue. So what this will do is this will make it to where all orders that come into the system for this customer are going to be unallocated to where you would have to then allocate them manually. A reason for this might be, for example, one client, they had when certain SKUs come in, depending on where it's going, for TJ Maxx versus, I don't know, what's another place that they ship to. One had coat hangers and one did not. And so they want to make sure that they manually allocate certain lots or certain SKUs to that versus the other. We're hoping that in the future here that our business rules will definitely be helping a lot with this to keep that manualness away. But this is currently the way to do it now. Smart Pack, auto print labels on pack. So what this will do is as soon as you hit pack, it'll auto print those labels for you. The Smart Pack enables scale. Now, even if you're not using scales in your warehouse because you have all your items predefined for weights, a good reason to turn this on is this allows you to make custom edits or changes to packages if need be. Maybe you're building a one-off package and or the weights are going to be different for maybe inserts or something else that you're throwing in there. This will allow you to make edits as need be. So even if you're not using scales, sometimes this is a good thing to turn on. Smart Pack automatically populate track by information. So this would mean that when you are packing, it'll automatically populate maybe the serial number or lot number or anything like that, any type of track buys. For small parcel, this is a commonly used one, though sometimes it's not a great thing to turn on. It just depends on your workflow. When you close an order, when a connection updates the tracking information. So this would be from an outside source is updating the tracking information. Maybe it is ShipStation or you have Tech Dynamics pushing in information to a system to close those orders as soon as tracking comes in. You can have that automated so that way you're not having to close those orders yourself. Disable auto clear of bin ID on pack. So this is utilized when you are using a pick to bin and you are picking to bins. So typically as soon as you pack that order, when you're in the small parcel module or in the smart scan, is that it will then eliminate that bin from that. Now people have built custom APIs outside of our system for different things and have needed this to be to where it does not disable it for whatever reasons. So it is an option that we offer to everyone. A common one that a lot of customers use and is definitely something I recommend if it's something you think you should use is require tracking number to close an order. So this means that tracking must be applied to the order for it to be closed. Maybe it's the end of the day and that's when lunchtime when you go through and you close all your orders. This will make sure that you don't accidentally close an order that was not already, a label wasn't already created for it. Allocate full movable units. One thing I just want to call out here is whenever you see something with triangle, please, please, please read the help articles on it. Read what it's telling you. I'm actually not even going to go over allocate full movable units. It's just something, unless it's very niche for you to utilize. Fulfillment invoicing. What fulfillment invoicing is for is if you are shipping and you need to know the cost of goods for whatever reason. This allows you to have that enabled or disabled, and it uses the cost price at the item level, or it can even be utilized at the cart as well. All right. Next is our mobile processing. So this is specific to SmartScan, and these are a few settings that we allow. And here, the first one is a common one is pick, allow, reallocate. So let's say I'm supposed to go get 10 widgets and it's on movable unit 1. That's where it's telling me to go. Well, movable unit 1 is in a floor loaded space and movable unit 10 is actually in the front. Movable unit 1 is behind 3 pallets. I can't get to it. If I had pick, allow, reallocate on and it's the same SKU, it'll allow me to reallocate myself when I am the picker to get it from there. Now, this can be great and utilized in that way. Can also be used incorrectly as well, because if I'm a picker and I just want to keep, instead of using the first in, first out, I could then just keep reallocating myself to easier positions rather than getting the one that's supposed to. Just something that I would like to call out. Pick auto advance to next line item. So what this means is when you're in the scanner, as soon as you pick the item, the next item will then queue up for you to get ready to be picked and tell you where to go. One below that, you must have the other one on as well in order for that to be turned on. Autofill SKU and track buys when identical. So if I'm going to a movable unit and this movable unit has just one SKU and I need to pick 10 SKUs, it's going to, as soon as I scan the movable unit, it's going to put that SKU in for me. Now, if this SKU also has the same lot numbers, let's say we're tracking lot numbers, it'll pre-fill that lot number in there for me. But let's say, okay, it's same SKU, same movable unit, same lot number, but different serial numbers. This will then pre-fill the movable unit, the SKU, the lot number, and then ask for the serial number. So that way you can scan that individually, thus just making you have to scan less and not, over and over and over again. And then lastly here for mobile processing is allow multiple pickers. One thing to note, when you enable this, it does disable the auto things that we have. And typically pick allow multiple pickers. What I've seen this utilized for is for more of the B2B clients or pallet in, pallet out clients to where it makes sense that 3 or 4 people are picking an order at a time because maybe they're getting forklifts and grabbing a pallet at a time. This allows that to happen, and at that point, they only are scanning a movable unit typically, and so then you don't need those other options. Just note too, when you have pick allow multiple pickers on too, labor analytics does also not pick up multiple pickers for that. All right. Next, we have our advanced shipping notice settings. And now this is specifically for EDI. And so one thing that I just tell clients is our EDI team will worry about this when you have any sort of EDI that you're doing. They will select these and check these off if need be. So not something we're going to be covering today. Now we have our packing slips. I'm just going to go over this briefly because we're going to have a follow-up call in the future about packing slips and customizations. But just know that you can come in here and edit them, add a header and a footer. You can browse or import any files that you like up to a certain size, and that way it'll show at the top and bottom of the packing slip. Batches. All right, so this is our auto batching system, and one thing to also call out on this is that when our business rules do release, this will be eliminated and batching will then be done in there. But this is something that you can utilize until then if need be. So in order to see any of this, you first have to enable it. You have a batch cutoff time. So like, hey, maybe at the end of the day at 3:30, we don't do any more orders after that. The batch cutoff will then end at that point. So that way the auto batching doesn't continue throughout the day after that. You get to select your batch size. And so it will not create a batch until you hit that number. So just one thing to call out on that. And then you have your batch rules. Now, only one rule can be enabled. Typical ones that I see that are common are identical orders. So let's say, hey, with a certain customer, they just had a sale go on, or they had these weekend sales where it's identical order after identical order. Well, to me, it makes sense to batch those orders so that way I'm just grabbing all the SKUs at one time, and then I'm just using the multi-order and I'm just slapping labels and packing at the same time because in each box is the same. It just only matters where the label is different on each one. Another common one is identical items, and maybe they're identical items in the orders, and then they can make it the same. This means that the quantity could be different, but still the same identical items. And as well as quantity one, this is a very common one. Maybe you have someone going and they're just going to do all the single order items to speed things up. Our inventory tab here, now this is specific to cycle counting. Cycle counting is not something we're going to be covering in this call. It'll be a webinar covered in itself that we'll go over. And then lastly here, after we go through our systems here, we'll stop for any questions that we'll have as well. First thing we have here is allow duplicate UPC values. Hopefully it's not something that you need to do, but it is something that can be utilized. It just tells you here, what happens if you do that. So please, once again, red triangle, please read into it and ensure that it is what you want. If you're going to utilize custom fields for a customer, it does need to be enabled in the general settings, as well as purchase orders. If you're using the location identifier report and you don't want to show locations with 0 inventory, you just click this on. And then lastly here, I'll go over a few more and I'll skip over others. If you're still using Billing Wizard and you're connecting to QuickBooks Online, this is where you would select your net terms. And then down here as well, you have an option to, when you create a receipt or create an order or both, it will auto push that invoice over to QuickBooks instead of you having to manually do it when you'd like to. And then you can plug in that accounting name. This other stuff down here is for EDI, and the carrier account information is typically used before small parcel was around, so it's not utilized that often anymore. I'm going to stop here and see if we have any questions. Looks like we got a lot going in chat.
There we
John,
go.
you have
Found my
any?
mute button. We've been answering them so far as we
Okay.
go. Let's see if anybody, I just made it so that everybody can unmute themselves if they need to, or anybody can unmute themselves. So if someone has a question they want to ask, go ahead and come off mutes and ask your question.
I have a question. This is Renee with Primary.
All right. Go ahead.
I just I just want to know, is this call supposed to be about serial numbers or just the basics of the system?
We will be going over serial numbers as well in the item setup.
Okay. That was all my questions.
Does the QuickBook push apply to QuickBooks Desktop as well? It does. No, it does not. That's only for QuickBooks Online. QuickBooks Desktop, you have to do it yourself through the web connector.
Hey, I have a quick question.
Go ahead.
If we allow duplicate UPC values, um, it'll when we're doing inventory lookups or anything with in the smart scan function and scanning UPCs, that's going to break that function, right?
Correct.
Okay. Um, because the
Yeah, we don't
system,
recommend you use it.
so there's no way of it being able to pull up like, two, three inventory items that have the same UPC or something.
No, it
No,
does
not
not.
at this point. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, no problem. Just want to know. Thanks.
Yeah, the reason that is there is we had a few customers that had specific use cases where they needed to be able to have duplicates. And so we went ahead and set it up, but we put the warning flag on there to make sure everybody knows we don't recommend this as a practice. We just had people that had a specific business need for it.
Perfect. All right, we're gonna go ahead and continue with item creation. So one thing to note is that items can be manually created, which is what we're gonna go through today. They can also be done through import or API as well. And we're just gonna go through one that I've created here. So we're gonna go ahead and hit edit here. One thing to note as well is you can deactivate. You can export these to then re-import them if you need to make mass edits to them as well, maybe for billing purposes or things like that, rather than manually going one by one. All right, so the SKU we're going to go over today is TP because I think everyone here knows what toilet paper is. So SKU is required. The next thing we have here is sell price. And so if you are utilizing fulfillment invoicing, you could plug in a sell price here. If you want to use product cost, you can say, hey, this costs us $1 to make or whatever it may be. This could be utilized for reporting purposes. And then we have our classifications here. Classifications is typically used for billing purposes. And for example, I just had a client with furniture, and they're like, "Hey, we have tables, chairs, and couches that we, have different pricing on." And so, they have 50 different chairs that they have, but they all have one pick price. And so what they did is they went in and classified those all as chairs. That way, whenever a chair is picked, it then gives them their chair price for that pick versus the couch versus the tables. And then next we have item description. So you can just utilize this and use whatever you want. Maybe you want to put what it is, or you have a secondary item description, and maybe there's a different search word that you want to use for reporting purposes. You could put that in there, maybe the brand name or something like that. You could plug that in there as well. And then tags. So tags is something new that we've added to the system, and they're not yet really being utilized. But what they will be utilized for is for billing manager and for business rules in the future. And so what you could do is you could create tags for billing purposes. And hey, whenever this gets added, this tag gets applied for whatever reason. Or maybe in the future it'll be for packing purposes that that, hey, whenever this item is brought in, it needs to use this type of packaging. We'll have tags like that that'll be available for you to utilize for multiple things. Just something that we brought in early, so that way everyone can utilize them. Next, we have our inventory options. So the first thing is how our allocation method is. It defaults to first in, first out. One thing I just want to call out is we did go over allocations in a previous call. So if you do have any questions on that, please refer to that or to our help articles, or you can always use our AI as well to help you with that. We have our first in, first out, last in, first out, our first expired, first out. Minimum on hand. So this is a triggerable event. So let's say, hey, when I fall below 50, I want a notification to be sent. That'll then be sent and your customer notifies to then notify them, hey, you've fallen below 50. Maximum on hand, hey, maybe you don't want to have more than 500 of these in your warehouse. Same thing, a notification gets sent out letting them know, hey, we received more than 500, stop sending us these. If that's something you want to utilize. Storage temperature. Now, storage temperature is just utilized for reporting purposes. This is not going to stop you. Maybe you have freezer goods. It's not going to stop you from putting frozen goods in a dry rack or something like that. But this will help for reporting purposes to ensure that you can make sure by running reports that that's not occurring. Reorder quantity. This ties into your minimum on hand. And what this does is, like, let's say, hey, I've fallen below 500 or below 50. Please send me 400 more. So now in that event notification, they will then be told, please send us 400. Days between counts. Now, this is for our old cycle counting and for reporting purposes. So let's say, hey, I want to do a cycle count every 60 days. And so you would plug that in. Just to note on this 60-day starts on the day that the item was created. And then you can classify these once again for reporting purposes. Maybe you want to group A's by B's, different groups. You can do that as well. It allows you to do that. And then lastly, for inventory options, we have our receive onto hold. And so maybe you have product that whenever it comes in, it needs to be quality inspected or it needs to sit for a certain amount of time before you can release it. This would be a good reason to have this enabled. So that way it just defaults to being put on hold rather than relying on your people on inbound to do that. All right. Next, we're going to get into our new tracking. And so you can see here, this is a little bit different than it was before. And we're going to go ahead and bring this up. So if you are here for this, for the new inbound versus outbound serialization, we just want to go over this and make sure that everyone's educated and understands how this works. And we'll definitely open the floor up here after we're speaking to it. But in the old way, that how we used to do inbound versus outbound, it probably was not what you expected if you had both of them turned on. So I'm going to get into detail here about what both of these are and what they do. So the first one, inbound serialization. So what inbound serialization means is that upon receiving the product, you are going to scan or inbound or track that serial number. So if that is something that you want to do for your client requires you to do, that would be the reason why you use inbound serialization. Now, this means that you're going to track it, on inbound, and now you have the option to validate this at either pick and or pack. So that means, hey, when I go and pick this product, I want them to scan the serial number to ensure that I have that. Great. I want them to do that also at pack or only at pack. They can do that at pack as well. And I'll demo that as well here once we get into Smart Scan. Now, in the outbound serialization, this is specific to, hey, we're only doing this at pack. This is only on the outbound. And you have two options. You have the option of at least one serial number per item, or serial number must match package quantity. So what that means, that first one, at least one serial number per line item. Let's say you have a carton of 10 items and all 10 of those items for that line have the same serial number. So then therefore you just scan one serial number for that. This does allow you to scan multiple serial numbers as well, because it says at least one, but it only allows you to go up to the quantity that you have. So if I were to scan that box, I would technically, that has 10 inside, I would only be able to put 10 serial numbers on there. The second option being that the serial number count must match what is packed. So however many is packed, I have to scan that many serial numbers or I'll put that many serial numbers. All right. I'm going to go into an order that I have here, and we're going to just go over and see what that looks like here in Smart Scan. So we're going to go into pick first. Get a single order pick. Need to mark it as complete first. Okay, so the first thing I'm doing is I'm scanning that movable unit. Now that movable unit has the same SKU on it, so that was pre-done since I have that setting turned on. Going to say what my quantity is, and then I would then scan that serial number. So this is at pick because I have it enabled at pick, as well as pack. Go ahead and hit done here, and I can finish my pick. So I then got it. If you got the wrong one on there, an error would pop up and let you know that it was incorrect, not the correct one. And now you can see this in pack as well. I'm gonna go ahead and start pack, add my package, scan my SKU. and scan my serial number. Once again, having me add the serial number for the item, confirming that it is correct. Go ahead and hit done and can finish pack here. Of course, you can have all your fees and everything like that as well. Now let's get into it so you guys can see that here. So what that looks like is first is you turning it on. So let's go over outbound. If you just do outbound, you have those two options, either one serial number per primary unit or at least one serial number per line item. Whereas on inbound, you then have multiple options to then either make it unique, required, validate at pick, validate at pack, one or the other, both. You have all those options here. And Brandon, yes, we are going to go over unit of measure. Just wanted to talk and make a point on tracking options here. So we're just going to stop real quick because I know there's quite a few people that were here specifically for tracking for lot numbers and serial numbers. One thing to call out as well is it was added for lot numbers and expiration dates to where you can validate at pick and at pack. So now that we're through that, the next thing we're going to continue with managing items here. So you have the option of having country of origin selected or MFC numbers if need be. You just need to create those beforehand where you can select your country of origin. The next thing you have here is qualifiers. Transparently, I'm not a great fan of qualifiers, but sometimes they are needed. Typically, why these are utilized, or the only case I've really seen them utilized for, is for clothing. Let's say I have this black shirt coming in, and for whatever reason, when they are created from the supplier, black shirt is just one SKU, whether it be small, medium, or large. And so what you could do in here is have different qualifiers that have small, medium, or large, and add those in here. Just note, once you add item qualifiers, they're always going to be there. And it's also kind of a headache depending on how you're doing your reporting and stuff as well. Best case would always be small should be its own SKU, medium should be its own SKU, large should be its own SKU. And for reporting purposes and stuff as well, you can then customize off qualifiers if need be. But that's typically the reason that these are utilized.
Yeah, can I add a couple of things to that, Charlie, really quick? One thing you really need to know about qualifiers is that once you create a qualifier, you cannot delete a qualifier once it's been used. And so you would end up having to rename that SKU, and remake the SKU, basically, exit any inventory out that you have into that SKU and bring it back in. We recommend extreme caution with this. There is a couple of valid, really good use cases for this. One of the nice things about it, I had a company that I worked with that was using it for good versus damaged, parts for an auto testing. They had to do some testing basically as those parts came in, validate whether they were good or not, basically. And so they created a good and a bad, basically qualifier. And so on the scan gun, that enabled the option for them at receipt to be able to hit a drop down and choose the option that they needed, basically. So, but there are a couple of things that are very specific about those that you need to know before you start using them. So if you do think qualifiers are going to work for you, or you might be interested in qualifiers, again, reach out to your CSM, your customer success manager. We're more than happy to go through and help you qualify the qualifiers, and make sure that's a good fit for you. So I'll give it back to you, Charlotte.
All right. Yeah, we're getting short here on time, so we're going to try to get here through the units of measure, and we're probably going to close here. So first thing is the measurement system. Depending on what you're utilizing, it defaults to that at your warehouse level. The next thing is your primary unit of measure. So this is super important depending on what it is that what you're counting, or maybe your client is counting. Maybe your client you have eaches that you're counting, or maybe you're only counting cartons, but your customer wants to count eaches. So it's not, therefore your primary unit would be an each. But let's just go over, since I'm using toilet paper, as we can recall, as my item here. And so we are going to count each, which would be each roll of toilet paper. Now, you could assign a primary UPC to that roll of toilet paper, just that singular roll of toilet paper. Maybe there's a barcode on it, and so that way you could do that. You have the option of using a secondary unit, and typically, when you buy those big ones at Costco, it's a 36 pack, and they have a little 6 packs inside. And so you could then have a UPC that scans for that as well. So that way, whenever you scan 4, 5, 6, it knows that you're scanning 6 eaches, maybe on your pick or something like that, if they were to be broken down. Then at our packaging level, you can see we have our carton, and we have 36. So it's how many primary units per package, and it's saying it's 36 of them. So it's 36 eaches. And you could also have a specific UPC for that. So that way, whenever I scan this UPC, it knows that I'm scanning 36 eaches. One thing to note is what the weight of this at the packaging unit, if you are utilizing a small parcel, and let's say we're shipping one of these, it would divide it by 36 because that's how many it has to then get its weight if you're using the weight off that and not a scale. Another thing to call out here is that you only ever want to get larger. You do not want to get smaller or then bigger. It should only grow. It should not go from an each to a carton to an inner carton. It's just going to mess up all of your inventory levels. Not something that we highly do not recommend. And then we have here movable units. So if you are utilizing movable units, in this case we are, you can see we have our quantity, and it says primary units. So this means that 360 primary units, so 300 rolls, which is 10 cartons, fit on a pallet. So therefore, if I bring in if I say bring in 360 or 3,600, it would then divide it by that many and make that movable units for me automatically. So that way on the inbound, it can then make that easier for you if they're coming in that often. Another thing to call out here is make sure that your weight is accurate. As I was saying, is it does divide off that if you are using packaging units and you are shipping in small parcel. The weight is very important for you to utilize that. And your packaging unit is also important if you are shipping your actual packaging unit. Maybe you just throw labels on it. And so what you can do is just hit recalculate packages. What recalculate packages does is it grabs the packaging unit information and creates that as a package in small parcel. So in this case, it would create a package 40 by 40 by 40, the weight of 10 pounds, and rate shop against that if need be. Well, we just want to thank everyone for coming today. And once again, if you have any questions, please reach out to your CSMs and we'll see you. Otherwise, we'll see you in a month. Have a great day, everyone.